This week's show is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts, helping podcasters get their shows off the ground and running at a low cost. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com today to get started. Hit up the Contact Us section, fill out your information, and your show could be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all your favorite podcast platforms in no time. It's professional sounding podcast production done the right way at a low rate without you ever having to think about any of the production stuff. You don't have to learn how to edit. You don't have to learn how to get your show wherever you need it to get to. All you have to do is sign up with Pretty Easy Podcasts, worry about the content, worry about being creative and doing your show your way. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com.
This is the future. This is not the past.
The new XFL will kick off in 2020.
If you smell what the XFL is cooking.
It's still football, but it's professional football reimagined.
This is our moment, our story to tell. This is history begun.
This is the XFL.
Welcome, football fans. This is the week of August 4th, 2019. This is the road to 2020, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
And I'm Bryant.
This week we examine what an XFL broadcast might look like, and we give you an unprecedented look at the XFL's league building process through the eyes of a summer showcase player. This is episode 80. You gotta be versatile. And you got to be ready because we are only 28 weeks away from kickoff for season 1 of the XFL. And what a fun week this was, Bryant. I got to talk to a guy, I'm going to go out and say it, is going to be an XFL offensive lineman and maybe one of the better ones.
It's going to be some insight into the showcases that we haven't received before. I'm excited for this. Our interview with Sean Hickey. Some good insight there, and definitely I think everybody's going to enjoy this for sure. What a week it is. It is now August 4th as you hear this show, and we didn't get the team names, Alan.
But there are rumors out there that we're going to get them before you know it, and maybe by next show. We'll talk about that, but we have some speculation for that. We have also some speculation and fun to talk about the broadcasts. I want to talk about some of the aspects we haven't really mentioned too much on this show yet, and that is how the networks are going to approach the XFL and who they're going to have broadcast these games in the booth, on the field, what they're going to do, what it will look like. We had some names hired this week by XFL networks that piqued a lot of people's interest. It got people talking, so we'll get into that. But the Sean Hickey interview, I'm telling you, everybody right now, it's off the hook. I mean, Mongo, it's his nickname, Bryant. You're going to hear from Mongo. He, former Syracuse offensive lineman. I spoke with him earlier this week, was at the XFL showcase, summer showcase in Jersey. And I mean, I didn't expect him to be so candid. You're going to hear an awesome interview. I'm going out on a limb saying an awesome interview with a guy who's probably going to be in the XFL, and that'll be coming up. But let's get back where we need to be. It's the beginning of the show, Bryant. Let's recap last week real quick and everything that led up to this show. Last episode, we talked a lot about players who could be XFL bound that are currently competing for NFL roster spots in training camps and in the preseason. We began the chronicles of Theo Riddick, and he ended up signing with the Denver Broncos. Side note, anybody who's on the Patreon or thinking about it, hilarious stuff on Theo Riddick and just overall NFL training camps as it pertains to the XFL from Vince earlier this week. Apparently, Theo Riddick more valuable than some of the elite running backs in the NFL. Who would have thought, Brian?
Yeah, he's Vince is always a character. He got super excited last week. If you check it out, we retweeted it as well. A little moment in Vince's history in terms of excitement that I've never seen him have before when it came to Michael Crabtree playing with Hal Mummy's offense in Dallas. He got so excited.
He won't stop talking about it. He will not shut up about it.
A lot of great combinations. I think we tweeted out earlier this week some names to look for at the Hall of Fame game. We'll probably keep doing that as the NFL preseason continues, but definitely some players that we should be keeping our eyes on as the preseason goes forward.
Yeah, that was really awesome part of last week. The Pro Football Advisory Board talk that I liked went over so many people's heads apparently, and I understand because that was a something that nobody really saw coming or really understands yet and hasn't been explained, but we try to dive into that. And then not to mention all the bonus material we did last week. Bryant I feel like we've been doing a show every single day for the Patreon, and some of those shows will end up, I think, hitting the free feed eventually, but bonus shows on what do we talk about? Fantasy football in the XFL, young or ineligible college players possibly being in the XFL. A lot of people talking about guys like Trevor Lawrence, maybe not that caliber, but other good college football players who maybe want to turn pro earlier than they're allowed to in the NFL. We did an entire show on that. And then, of course, July's bonus show where we talked about just about the craziest hypothetical you can imagine.
Well, it was hypothetical sandwich is what it was. There's just hypothetical on top of hypothetical. It was a double animal style out here with those hypotheticals. But it was, if the NFL did not play in 2021, what should the XFL do because of the CBA issues that they probably are going to have? We did a lot on Patreon, a lot of shows, a lot of extra content there. So go check it out. This isn't a too much of a push, but we did do a lot. And Alan, I think I've talked to you every day this week, and man, that's a lot of talking to you, to be honest with you.
I know it's been the greatest week of your life. I know you don't have to tell me, but the best part about it is it's about to get better, Bryant. Because if you're ready to get into this week's cover too, we're going to start off with that amazing interview I had earlier this week with Sean Hickey. If you are ready, are you ready?
The way you've hyped this up, I don't know if I am, but I'm going to try my best.
How the hell you doing, Brainiacs? Long Island Iced Tea here. I'm ready to talk pro graps with you this week, but I'm also ready to get to the bottom of who attacked Roman Reigns with, what was that man called Wired, a forklift?
The Long Island, it is I, a man called Wired, and I don't know if it was a forklift. I don't know. There's so many questions. The biggest question is who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin with the car. It's so. I really want to question Caleb Braxton. That's what I really want to do.
I want to question everybody. I'll question you. Were you the one who did it?
No comment.
Brainiacs, I'm putting everybody on the lie detector this week on Brainbuster Radio, and we're also going to keep hyping up SummerSlam. It's coming up. Plus, we got All Elite Wrestling planning some huge matchups already for their TNT debut, and not to mention All Out's fastly approaching. We've got the biggest day in professional wrestling of the year coming up at the end of the month. We need to begin hyping that up. A man called Wired. Do you realize there's like 9 shows on August 31st at the same time?
Long Island, all I know is that on August 11th, it's the biggest party of the summer. We have pregnant champions. We have fiends. We have everything you can imagine. And the man called Wired is promising that day to be the biggest day in the history of professional wrestling. Bigger than August 31st.
You know what I'm going to tell you is going to be even bigger than that? It's going to be Brainbuster Radio this week. It's summertime. Everybody's feeling hot. Brainiacs, join us for some pro-graps. Tweet it, read it, tout it, shout it. Be all about it at the Brainbusters on Twitter, Instagram Junior, Facebook, and hit us up on your favorite podcast gimmick. Here we go. It's time for the cover 2.
Going for 2. Go for 2 and the lead.
And trust me, it's going to deliver, Bryant, because Sean Hickey was a Syracuse third-team All-ACC offensive tackle. And I got to speak with him earlier this week. He has been in NFL camps for the Vikings, the Jaguars, the Saints, a few other teams. He's gone and he's lasted an entire season on an NFL practice squad. So he is one of those guys we talk about, right? Just something keeping him from being in the NFL on a 53-man. But he's done the work. He's now approaching his late 20s and was just about to get out of it. But the XFL Summer Showcases happened last month, and we've talked to players before on the show going into the Summer Showcases, right? And those were insightful for sure. But this is a post-showcase interview, and a guy who has a pedigree when it comes to experience at the highest level. I mean, the guy was with the Vikings going against that defensive line. We're talking about one-on-ones with Everson Griffin, a monster. He's been there, and he's looking to keep his football dream alive, Bryant. So you're about to hear from the mind of a guy, or the words of a guy here that is, I think the exact type of player the XFL's looking for. If you have anything left to say before I play the interview for you, go ahead.
I'll just say this. I'm looking at his stats sheet here. Almost 40 consecutive games played for the Syracuse Orange. He was signed with the Saints and the Patriots in 2015, the Jets and Vikings in 2016, and then your whole year that you're talking about was with the Miami Dolphins in 2017. He ended up getting cut by them in 2018 and then signed with Jacksonville in 2018, but didn't really make it to the season. You're right. This is the type of player that the XFL can use, someone who has that taste, but for whatever reason can't get over that hump. This is a perfect way to show his skills. So hopefully, I haven't listened to this interview yet, all cards on the table, so I'm excited to see what's going on.
Yeah, and not only is it great because this guy really has, I think, what it takes to be in the XFL, and I won't be surprised if and when he makes it, but also super candid. He's going to say some things about, the player's perspective going into this XFL venture and what it means for them and the decisions they're facing and all of that. We haven't really heard that side yet, and you're about to right here on This is the XFL Show. Part 1 of our Cover 2 is our interview with XFL prospect offensive lineman Sean Hickey. Sean Hickey, welcome to This is the XFL Show, man. We know that player announcements are coming soon for the league, but before we even talk XFL, I got to ask you about your nickname, Mongo. I heard through the grapevine is what you're called. How'd that come to be?
Yeah, that was a high school and middle school nickname and midget football nickname. I was like, I had to be 10 years old, 11 years old, and one of the taller kids on the team, and actually an old NFL player, Tom Flynn. He played at Pitt. Won a Super Bowl with the Giants. He played for the Packers. He was one of my coaches, and he brought up the Blazing Saddles movie where the old I forget his name, the old defensive lineman for the Lions. He died a couple years ago, and he sucker punches a horse and knocks it out. And he just gave me that nickname back in midget football, that it stuck through high school. So, yeah, that was my nickname.
I love it. Keeping the spirit of Alex Karras alive. I love it, man.
Yes, that was it. That was it. Yeah.
Well, you're former Syracuse offensive lineman, third team All-ACC. You've got credentials. You've been in some NFL training camps, and I'm sure that's what led to the XFL noticing you. Is it they who reached out to you, or did you angle to get the invite to the summer showcase you went to there in New Jersey?
So I'll be in the league 4 years, like on teams and on practice squads every year. And last year I got a shot at the Jaguars after I was with Miami in 2017, and then I got let go in June of 18 after the draft. And the Jags picked me up, and it was a good situation. Everything was going good. Then I had a grade 2 tear in my calf, and right before the first preseason game, and that was a real hit to my career, because preseason tape would keep me alive to get back on P squads if I got picked up before camp. And that was kind of a bummer, and it really derailed me, because that was a good situation for me personally, with the numbers and playing well. So when I stayed in shape and nothing came up during the season, I had some interest, but in terms of I was on a few boards, but nothing popped up. So after the season ended, my agent said, let's stay in shape through the draft. And I'm always going to be in shape, but I was still in the playing weight through the draft. And after the draft, when rookie minicamps came out, if you're not on a team, you can get invited. And I didn't get one, so I kind of realized it's probably over. So I started losing weight. And then as I was losing weight, dropping weight, then the XFL gave me an invite. And it was pretty spur of the moment in terms of, we all found out 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks before the showcase actually started. They actually had the showcase. So I sat there and I thought, I still want to play, of course, but it comes down to, I made a pretty good amount of money. I mean, just to move on from football, but at the same time, when you don't get paid for a while, it starts to go down a little bit. So I had to make a financial decision. Do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? So I said, how about I just go? No harm in going to the showcase and see how I do. And I went, and it went pretty. All the feedback I got was very positive, and I felt I did pretty well, very well, especially given we only had a couple of weeks' notice, and I was basically just lifting. I was just still lifting and trying to cut calories and doing some cardio. So it went very well, and we all got an email for an invite, and I was one of them. And I said, "What the heck? Let's go!" And my passion to play is still there, and I felt knowing how much they're going to pay it for a relatively short season. It seemed like it was worth it to me. Now, a couple other leagues, the CFL has reached out, arena, indoor, and I didn't feel those were worth it in terms of finances. But because I obviously want to play, but you have to be realistic about life also. And but the XFL is definitely worth it, and I was happy to get the invite.
That's really cool that you paint it that way, Sean, because we've had a lot of talk on our show about the XFL making it worth it for the players, and there are other options, but some of them, you got to go up north to Canada, and some of them just don't pay enough. But you're saying that the XFL, you think right now with how they've let the players know the pay is going to be structured and this league's going to function, you think it makes sense for a lot of guys like you who have had experience on practice squads and could be NFL players if it weren't for, bummers, like you said, with your calf and injuries and whatnot. You think the XFL overall is doing a good job of making this league worthwhile for the players?
Absolutely. It was always interesting when the XFL was coming out and you knew it was coming, and you saw the AAFL rush their product out they rushed it when they really shouldn't have, just to beat the XFL because they knew the money that was going to be behind it. And it didn't work out. And, but that league still got players that were good enough to be in the NFL or at some point in time, and they felt they were good enough, but they felt that they didn't want to go play for $500 a week in the indoor league, or they didn't want to go up to Canada and be stuck up there if you're an American player and you go up to Canada, you're a rookie. Even if you're in the NFL for 4 years, you're considered a rookie up there, and you have to sign a 2-year contract in which if an NFL team would offer you after a year, the CFL has no obligation to let you go. And I know a lot of American players get stuck up there, and they have to have that American Canadian ratio. This past, in May, a Canadian team asked me to come up there, to come up for training camp and all that stuff. And you can play. I didn't even respond because I've already been through the CFL, and analyzing that process. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. And then two NFL seasons, 30 years ago, I got offered, and I went to Minnesota and I made a whole year out of it. And then the following year, the same thing happened, and I made a year out of it in Miami. And I'm happy I didn't take those. And then this past year, it happened again. And I said, it's 2 years. It's not much money. The conversion rate isn't worth it for the money. I'm at 27 years old. Now, if you're 23 years old, it might be a little different, but XFL right now is definitely by far the preferred league for players that know they can play. They feel they're good enough to play, but it still makes it financially worth it. And the details haven't come out yet, but health insurance is going to be a part of it. So that's also big because in the CFL, the American health insurance gets a little gray area, and that's a part of the reason why I didn't want to do it. So the XFL is making it worthwhile for us players to not move on into a professional career if we had to, after the NFL opportunities dried up, and move on to another career. This is making us think twice and keep on playing football.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought there should be an option like the CFL in the States for players, and that's hopefully what the XFL will be when it comes to, there's so many talented football players out there that could still be playing the game. They just, for whatever reason aren't on an NFL roster. So that's why we're all looking forward to this league being in the spring, especially. It makes a lot of sense, but some guys are going to be faced with decisions, and you have experience playing on practice squad, Sean. How do you think guys will approach? I know it's a case-by-case thing, but overall, How do you think a guy would approach it if it was you, if you had the choice of an NFL practice squad gig or playing time in the XFL? How would you approach that decision?
I've actually thought about this. It depends. It depends how old you are. I feel if the younger you are, you want to probably ride with the NFL because if someone would get hurt, then you can get bumped up. But also, it also depends on how many teams you've been on. Once you're off your first team, for whatever reason, it could be numbers, it could be you could have done well, but you're on a practice squad, but a safety gets hurt, they have to let you go, and then you might get picked up by another team instead of waiting for the other team to bring you back. But once you start switching teams, it's the trend is it's the easier you are to get cut again. So once that starts happening for a couple of years and you're able to latch back on to another team and get on another practice squad, it starts getting a little harder in terms of it's kind of just the way the trend is. It's kind of hard to explain, but so then the only film you're getting for this for the rest of the league is like maybe 4 quarter. Like if you play 1 quarter in the first preseason game, you play 1 quarter in the second preseason game, you play maybe 1 in the third, and you play half of a fourth. That's not that much film. And then the only team that really knows you is the practice squad that you're already on. And for whatever reason, if they don't keep you and you only have, let's say, 2 or 3 quarters of tape in the preseason, or maybe let's say 4, that's not much to ride on. So then the older you get, you kind of want to get the film. So it kind of depends on how old you are. But and also what's tough, depending on how much the pay is actually finalized, once the NFL season ends, you're making $12,000. You're making 12 to 13 grand through training camp, from January to training camp. That's not much money at all. I mean, it's barely anything. And you're kind of riding or dying if you're going to be on a roster or a practice squad to make the year financially worthwhile, which is what's nice about the XFL. 10 weeks, training camp, and then a 10-week season, and the playoffs right in the spring. Like, it would be nice if you were on a P squad to be able to go play that in the off season just to get money and then go back. But that's a lot of football, and that wouldn't work with the PA. But it's a very worthwhile league if you're a little older and you need the tape. Like, it's definitely the longer you go without much tape, the harder it gets.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So we're talking guys who are maybe 27, 26 through maybe to 30, and have experience like you on practice squads. We're looking at guys like that who are probably going to say the XFL is going to be a little bit better decision. And even younger guys too, maybe it depends on the personal situation. If you need more stable money, you would assume that you'd probably go with the XFL then, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
for sure, because if you let's say, I mean, if you get in a training camp, if you got bringing on in the spring, like the later you get brought in, let's say you got brought in the very end of OTAs, or you get brought in minicamp, you get signed and you go right into camp. The longer you haven't been there, the further you are behind in the playbook, but also just in the locker room in general. And the harder it is to make it. You could have a great camp, but they just view you as the guy that just got there. And they might keep you on P squad. But if you're kind of gambling your entire year off on your training camp and seeing if they keep you. So that gets very stressful and gets very hard.
Yeah,
and it's a tough gig. And if you don't make it, then you almost waste an entire year financially.
Yeah, that's definitely taking a gamble. And like you said, the tape is so important, and now the XFL is giving you the option of putting a lot more out there if you want to go back to the NFL. I'm sure we'll see that happen a lot with players going to the XFL and maybe getting another shot. We saw it with the AAF, and they only lasted 8 weeks. When it comes to the showcase you went to, and now ever since we're a month since or so, a little over. Have you heard anything from the league? Did they give you a timetable on when emails or would come out, or if they'd be calling you?
Yeah, so I wanted to know this for myself. I mean, being 27 years old, I was body-wise transitioning out to try to get down to about 280 pounds. I was about like 295 when I got the email. I was about to go, and I was able to get to 300 when I went to the showcase. And I kind of wanted to know, like, all right, I'm kind of putting my life on hold here and just having a couple small jobs just to try to save the money that I already made. I'm trying to figure out what the game plan is, and I try to talk to my agent, but they didn't really let anything slip until I knew right after the showcase, I got taken aside like where other people didn't, and I had a little extensive talks with people on the New York staff, and I kind of got the feeling after the showcase that for me personally, I did myself a service by going and to get picked up, and I felt I did a pretty good job there. But I wanted to follow up with my agent though, so I had my agent try to get in contact once all of the showcases were done. I don't think they were really letting much slip while the showcases were going on, but once they were done, I got feedback back through my agent, and they said that I did it very well, and I'm I don't want to be a definite, but pretty hopeful to sign the letter of intent that's coming up. I believe in August they're going to start offering. Sometime this month they'll start offering those. And then the draft's in mid-October, or sometime in October. So the letter of intent will go out to put you into the draft, and then you would find out where you go come draft time. That's the information that I know.
Cool. So I was at the Jersey showcase, and I was watching afterwards, and yeah, there were some guys who it ended, and they just packed up and left. So you're saying shortly after the festivities ended and the drills and whatnot, you actually had some conversations with New York staff members and league staff members, or?
Yeah. I just sat down. It was just, they kind of said the interest about you being a former NFL tackle and NFL guy. And they went up to everyone that like during the showcase to kind of get like a sense of what games should I watch, what games this or that. And then afterwards, some guys got taken aside and sat down for interviews, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them, and we felt pretty good about that. And going over NFL experience, they said going against Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph and Everson Griffith every day for a few years, like that, like it's talent that you don't see every day. So they were just saying that they were like obviously they're going to want to take young guys as well, but they want experience, and that's where they're kind of looking to me for. So hopefully that pays off for me and for the XFL draft.
Well, yeah, it's great that you stayed in shape, and you are in your prime, and it's like timing's everything, man. So this could pretty much work out for you here with when the XFL comes calling and puts you into that player pool. We'll be rooting for you here. Also, just a couple more questions before we let you go, man. This is awesome insight into the player perspective, which we often don't get to hear with the building of the league yet, but we're going to get to learn a lot more about you guys as you become a part of the league, of course. But I want to know, when you were at the showcase, they had kind of like a lecture that Oliver Luck and Kevin Gilbride were a part of, teaching fans about the rules, and they had PowerPoints and whatnot. Did they do any explaining of potential rules for the league to you guys in private? Because this league is going to have some different aspects to the rule book. It's going to mostly be normal football, but they are going to make some changes. Did they do any explaining of the new rules to you guys?
They mentioned that it's going to be it's going to be football, but it's going to be a little bit of it. It's going to be legit football, but it's going to be set up in different ways that are going to be exciting for the fans and in ways that haven't been really seen yet. But they didn't go into detail. They just wanted us. I'm pretty sure when we got there, there was like, just go out and compete, work hard, and go get a job. And they kind of didn't really elaborate on what those rule changes are going to be. But when you look online and you read into it, we know that there's going to be, they are going to have a different setup. But like the details of it, they did not go into that with us.
Okay, cool. Yeah, they are keeping a hush-hush. We're expecting that rule book to come out, but, we do know some of the ideas that are floating around there. And the cool thing I think about it is these are changes, but they're not changes that put players at any more risk, unlike the original XFL, which kind of just threw players out there and said, go kill yourselves for the fans. This is with, safety in mind as well, which is also good to know the league is taking into account. So you were in Jersey. You played at Syracuse. Do you have a preferred XFL city you'd land in or system you'd play in, knowing all the coaches are set up with their staffs now?
I didn't get to see I didn't take a look at all the exact stats. If there's somewhere I know someone or I was coached by someone, I haven't heard that yet, but I'm just looking for an opportunity. It's kind of like a U-shaped almost when you look at the teams around the country with New York, DC, Tampa, St. Louis, the Texas teams, and LA and Seattle. I mean, I would go anywhere. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not sure if all the training camps are going to be held. I believe Texas, but like kind of like the AFL, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just me. That's just rumors.
Yeah, they're supposedly going to be in Dallas, I believe.
Yeah, so it really to me it doesn't matter. I mean, I live in Pittsburgh, so if I'm closer to Pittsburgh, then I mean, great. But I've been all over the place, and I really enjoy going to different cities. So. And traveling and living in cities, so it really does not matter to me.
And you still got the fire to play, which is most important and all that really matters. You got a preference? Last one, guard or tackle? Tackle.
I instinctually and like just growing up, I played tackle my entire life until I got to the NFL. Every game in college, every game in high school, every game instinctually, I feel like tackle is my gig, but I played a lot of tackle and guard in the league, and I got when I was in Miami, when I was in Minnesota, I was really clicking at guard. I really liked it, and I was starting to get the instincts. I know how to set at guard. I know how to do all this stuff, but it's a little different with some of the footwork, some of the reactions, like how the games work out, how their rushes are. They tackle the ends have a lot of space, a lot of time to think, and you have a lot of time to think on what they're going to do and react. Whenever it's down a guard, it's very quick. Everything happens a lot faster because they're right in front of you. So it's just a little different mindset, a lot less space. So it's a little different adjustment, but I'm fine with both. The more positions you can play, the more valuable you can. And you even try to. Before I haven't got any live reps at it, but I'm going to also be trying to learn center to be able to try to see if I'm going to be able to functionally snap. Because if I could play 5 positions, then that's very rare. So I'll be trying to work on that leading up to training camp if I'm drafted.
You got to be versatile, and I know you aren't, man, because you just came on the podcast and killed it. We got to have you back on when you're playing in the league, and we'll talk about some upcoming games and recaps of XFL games with you. This was tremendous, Sean. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Mongo! There he is.
Alan, I like Hickey's thing at the end. Can I try hosting one of these days? And I want to make sure I'm available for all positions on this show.
Oh, you mean you want to quarterback this show? You quarterback the not XFL show on Patreon. Don't get greedy. You didn't hear Hickey. You didn't hear Mongo saying he wanted to play quarterback there. Now, Brian, ease up. But Mongo, Sean Hickey there, explaining how there really is incentive when it comes to the XFL for players. I thought was the most eye-opening. Players facing the opportunities in the NFL, some of them the long shot opportunities, or the more realistic and also financially secure opportunity in the XFL. The XFL is making it indeed, giving players, a reason indeed to join their league. And you heard it right there from a guy who's probably going to be playing in the league.
Yeah, what I caught the most out of it was the simplicity of how much you can make in the spring in the XFL compared to how much you can make from January through the start of the season in the NFL as part of a practice squad or just a training camp invitee. That's an interesting aspect that I didn't really think too much about, Alan. I think we're all talking about whether or not they're going to stick around for 2019. And play the practice squads there. But you got to think about 2020 and what you're going to do after the season and if you're going to get invited back. So some great insight there and good perspective from somebody who, you're right, seems very definitely that they're actually going to be in the league.
Yeah, I mean, if you go by the fact that he told us he was brought aside by by coaches afterwards, and I was there. I'm telling you, not a lot of players were being pulled to the side. Those drills ended, and people left, got in their cars, and they left Montclair State. Also, the fact that this guy was recently on a practice squad for a full year, but he brought up the guys who bounce from squad to squad. I kind of have, the so-called scarlet letter on them. They're going to be staying away from those guys, the NFL teams, because they see they're easily cut. They're guys who are camp bodies, as they say, which I find a little bit derogatory, especially in a day and age where we have a new league coming and opportunities, and these are football players, and that's what I call them. Sean Hickey's definitely one of them, and I just thought that was so cool to just get the point of view from a player. We've heard on this show from coaches, from the commissioner himself, from team presidents, and now we're hearing from a guy looking to break into the league and who is very close to it, was at the summer showcases, and is now patiently waiting to get that phone call or email. And very, very insightful there from Sean Hickey. Hopefully we'll have him on again whenever he's protecting someone's blind side in the XFL. Maybe Landry Jones in the Hal Mummy offense. Who knows?
No preference on where he plays. He just wants to play. That's a great attitude to have, and hopefully he gets signed and he gets drafted. Some good insight too about when we can start expecting quote unquote letters of intent starting here in August, and in the draft that we expect in October. So things are rolling, like we keep saying. The XFL is not slowing down in terms of anything as it leads to 2020.
You can't. Only 28 weeks, and we're not slowing down because we got another part of this cover too, Bryant. Real quick question. I don't want to spend too much time on it because everybody's talking about it, and it's going to happen. And when it does, everybody can relax and, well, they can give us their thoughts. Hate or really enjoy it. The team names, of course. Another week comes by, and we don't have them yet. We were told probably in January. Didn't happen. But we did hear that maybe August would be the final month that you'd have to wait till for team names. And now we're hearing rumors through XFL internet, or XFL social media, I guess you would say, Twitter and Reddit and anywhere you look. There's some people are saying the team names are coming this week, Bryant. And if that's the case, that means next show we're going to have team names to react to. So here it is, our final chance, apparently, to give any last-minute guesses or changes to the team names that we've been talking about all along. Do you have anything you need to put out there before the official names come out, if indeed this is the week?
Well, just in regards to the team names being announced next week, I just want to backtrack a little bit and talk about a couple weeks ago, we had a earthquake 4th of July weekend out here in California. So I want to congratulate everybody who said it was earthquake weather the day before that. Eventually, these people will be right. We're going to get team names the next week if you keep saying it. Maybe. And it's great if they do. And if they come out and the internet's correct, then good on them. But is it the furthest thing from my mind? I don't want to say that. I'm excited for team names. I want them to come out. I want to have something to talk about when it comes to those team names. I'm not living on edge. I'm not waking up every morning hoping that they're announced that day.
Yeah, the thing about it is with the team names, and I don't really think there is that. There are a few. I think it's a small amount of people who are very vocal that are upset there are no team names yet. But it's not the end of the world for sure. It's not even close to it. And also, there's so many other things to be excited about and talk about with the XFL. It's not the only thing. I know it's high on people's lists, but when it comes, it'll come. And it's not like they're not going to have team names. So I feel like they're kids who can't wait for Christmas, and they're shaking the presents, Brian, and now they're trying to open them.
If you're only excited for the XFL because of team names, then there's other issues to worry about, because that's not what the really about. But I'll digress and I'll answer your question here.
And the XFL is not about 2 words. It's not about team names. It's about 3 words, Bryant.
Good crisp football.
And remember it.
Remember, I guess that's not their listening. Anyway. Alan, I did go back and listen to our Patreon exclusive show. It was our first one back in February, where we all 4 got together and talked about XFL team names. And there were some good ones on there, Alan. The one I think that I like the most.
Seattle Sasquatches.
No, it was the New York Empire. That was one of my favorites. And the one I want to really talk about maybe a little bit on this show is we settled on the Tampa Bay Bandits because of the old USFL. But what about the Tampa Blackbeards? I almost like that one better.
No, I don't like it better. No, not at all. But I like it. Tampa Bay, really, I don't think it's going to be tough to mess that up. There's a lot of great options, I think, for the Tampa Bay franchise. Blackbeard is a good one. Blackbeards. Or just
Blackbeards?
Or Blackbeards. Or Black. Nah, you can't just.
How about the Blackbeards of Tampa?
That's.
No? Like Anaheim, Anaheim?
No. I don't think anybody digs that. I think you could go Blackbeards. You could go Swashbucklers. You could go Scallywags. You could go Bandits.
Sarsaparilla?
Sarsaparilla, yeah. Isn't that like a festival down there? Yeah. Tampa really is. I don't think that's one city I don't think you can mess it up. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's Bandits, because I think the opportunity for cool merchandise is just it's all over the place with that. There were other team names. Obviously, I've been pushing hard the Seattle Sasquatches, but
really,
can you tell? But the one is L.A. I don't think we thought too much about it, because I think we all have a given that it's going to be extreme.
No, we talked really extensively about it. We were discussing on whether or not it was going to be EX or just X Extreme.
Yeah, because I don't remember one other name anybody brought up for LA. Although I will say, I wouldn't mind. Sometimes you name a team name after the founders of the team is a popular thing, like the nickname or something, and we could call this team a few things. We could call it the LA Carrots. I would be all about, or the LA Mosses, or the LA Wins. I like LA Wins is pretty good too.
That would be the Just Wins, baby.
LA stands for excellence.
Being an LA fan through and through, it's going to be hard if it's not the Extreme. I've already kind of come to terms that it's not going to be the LA Extreme, but this is a little glimpse of me that still hopes it is.
One bold prediction: if this is indeed the week, one thing you're absolutely confident about when it comes to the team names.
Absolutely confident about. I think we're going to see the St. Louis Stallions. I think the XFL worked that one out. But a bold prediction, man. I'm going to say that it's going to be the Seattle Kraken.
That's the NHL name they were going for, wasn't it? And then they ended up saying no to it.
Man, I don't even know if I want to say that. God. Okay, bold prediction. It's going to be the LA Extreme. I said it there.
All right. You're locking it in. I like it. I'm going to lock in. You know what I'm locking in? Do you have an idea?
If you say Sasquatches, I might walk off this show. That might be my threat every week, by the way.
I am going to go out right now and guarantee to everybody waiting for these team names that the Seattle team. All right, no, I'm not going to say for sure it's going to be Sasquatches. I'm not that confident. I'm hoping for it. I'm going to say my bold prediction is going to be that the Tampa Bay team is going to be pirate themed. For sure. Has to be.
What do you chances are we're just going to get LAFC type stuff? Los Angeles American Football.
Oh, zero chance. No way. Not going to happen. That'd be un-American to do that.
Over under 2 animals.
Ooh.
2.5 animals.
I mean, what animal could you use that isn't already taken? I mean, all the animals.
Stallion is an animal.
Oh yeah, all the animals in the kingdom are taken. I think I'm going 1. I'm going. There's going to be no more than 1.
I'm going to say 2. I'll say 2. I don't know what other one, but there'll be 2. We would do maybe like the Houston Owls.
Woo! Who do they even have?
Who dat?
It would be like cool to play that on a PA at a stadium, but I don't think that's happening. I don't know. I just want the team names to come. I'm ready to react to them. I'm tired of speculating on them. We can move on if you're ready.
It is an interesting conversation to have, and I think I understand why people like to have it. I think why people are worried about it, but they'll get here. It's just patience. It's a long summer. It's a long stretch. How many weeks, Alan, again?
28 weeks.
That means at this rate, they could name one team every, what? Every 4 weeks, and we would be okay? No, more than that. No, about 4 weeks.
Oh, that's a one last one. Do you think they're going to roll them out, or do you think they're going to be all at once?
I think at this point, they're just going to roll them out. If they do them one at a time, it would take 8 weeks, 2 months to do it. If you do one a week, it just seems like too long of a timetable.
Well, we'll hopefully find out this week, and if not, I'm fine with that because there's plenty else to talk about. Like our final topic for this week's show is we dive into the broadcast portion of the XFL. Excellent network partners we know about in Fox and ESPN. And, well, they might think outside the box, we hope. And they were just at the Spring League doing just that, testing and thinking outside the box. And let's speculate now on what an XFL game might look like on television in this week's Hot Read.
Football fans, it is I, Bryant. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us on this road to 2020. In what normally is a slow-paced summer and a long wait for training camp, the XFL has fulfilled the football emptiness that we all feel this time of year. And, well, this is the XFL shows helping you out as well on Patreon. With weekly bonus content and conversations about the XFL, This is the XFL show leaves no stone unturned in its coverage of the XFL. Listen to episodes up to a week before the general public and catch our monthly Patreon exclusive bonus episodes where we go in depth into a subject surrounding the XFL. Still need more? Well, we got you covered with our weekly This Is Not the XFL show. Every week, we talk all things not XFL in the world of football, and with college football set to kick off in just a few months, come check out our Top 25 preview as Alan and Vince give their preseason Top 25. Also, coming up later this summer is our NFL Fantasy Football Special, where we will discuss some of the biggest questions surrounding all your fantasy football needs. And, if you can believe it, Jake will take part in fantasy football this season for the first time in his life. Don't wait anymore. If you haven't already, go to patreon.com/This Is the XFL show and check it out. There is also plenty of free content there, so you have really no reason not to check it out. Patreon.com/This Is the XFL show and get a first class seat on the fast track to XFL 2020.
Blue 58! Blue 58! Go! Hey, Ric Flair! Ric Flair! Pepper, Flip, Caliber. O-Town, Happy, Jolly, Drop, Buster, Boomer, Tiger! I think he's got a hound too, Rodney, I think. B-19! B-19 is fucking! Hey, Seattle! Ryan!
Omaha! Omaha! I learned on that Peyton's Place show this week that they just released what Omaha means, Brian. Did you know what it means?
Please tell me.
It means that I don't have time. It means you should watch it, and I don't have time to get into it. But it was an audible, and it had to do with the 3-syllable word Omaha, and that would switch to the second play of a call, Peyton Manning. It was very interesting. I highly recommend Peyton's Place, but I digress. Let's talk about the network Peyton's Place airs on, ESPN, and how they might end up broadcasting XFL games, because when the first XFL came around, Brian, I don't know about you, but I kind of was floored most of all by the way football was presented back then, because it was unlike anything you ever seen, and I'm hoping we get that kind of innovation in a different way with the new XFL. I can't pinpoint how it's going to be. With announcers, there's a bunch of things you could do. Do you think, first of all, do you think it's going to be a traditional 2-person booth, person on the sideline type deal? Is that what you expect?
Yeah, 2 sideline, 2 people in the booth, maybe a third one here and there. But yeah, I think they're going to be traditional in that sense. You're not going to have, Vince Scully up in the booth, calling a game by himself. That's just no longer done by anyone. You always have a play-by-play man and a color man. I Alan, can we talk a little bit too, just real quick for who don't know? ESPN, although we're only going to be talking about ESPN and Fox, ESPN does all the broadcasts for ABC. It's even says ESPN on the actual channel. So really no difference between the two. So do you see a difference between all the different networks being presented, the way they're going to present them?
No, I think that's going to be an important thing. The fact that the XFL is going to be broadcast similar across the networks they're on, because you want it to have a uniform look. You want people to know you're watching the XFL for sure. So I definitely think the XFL this week at the Spring League, where not only were there players there trying out and there was rules being tested, but broadcast partners there also taking part. I think that was a great place for everybody to get on the same page on how they want these games to look. And hopefully not too many of those crazy air cams we saw in the AAF. My goodness, talk about just overusing something that could be a good thing if used sparingly. You need to know what to use, when to use it. I'm hoping for some, spider cams like we used to see. I'm hoping for some in the huddle type stuff or on the sidelines right up in someone's grill. I want to see people screaming on the sidelines. I want that kind of access, which the XFL's been, promising. But I also want colorful personalities to be involved. And I think a lot of people have been talking about that lately because we saw ESPN hired Pat McAfee, who is pretty much the quintessential colorful personality when it comes to color analysts of football these days, or anybody doing a radio show or podcast. The former punter for the Colts has really stood out with his time at Barstool. He's had some, work with the WWE, worked with Fox a bit, and now he's with ESPN doing college football, they announced this week, and that just perked everybody's ears up because I think that's the exact kind of guy you want in the XFL. Someone who's funny, who's quick-witted, who is a little quirky. One guy like that on the broadcasts, at least on the A broadcast team, I think is essential for the XFL to stand out.
But his skills have never been tried out at the play. Yes,
right? He's called NFL games for Fox. Yeah, and the week he did it, I remember. I mean, he was a clip machine. Like you saw people tweeting out and putting on blogs like, oh my goodness, listen to this call by Pat McAfee after this Lions play or something. I mean, you saw him at the NFL draft, how he was antagonizing Titans fans, and really, he's got the professional wrestling love in him. So that kind of, everybody wants the XFL to steer clear from pro wrestling, but let's not forget that pro wrestling is seeped into everything in our culture, and that's because people like charisma and they're attracted to that, and the ability to captivate an audience, and you need people like that who understand that kind of psychology, and that they got to be a showman. You got to have a showman involved in this in some way, shape, or form, whether it's during the broadcast or pre-games or what, I don't know, but they need someone like that.
People really don't like to admit it, Alan, like you point out, but wrestling does have a certain impact, especially on the way you watch television, the way it's broadcast, the way it's produced. The Rock, would it be The Rock today if it wasn't for professional wrestling? He'd be the first one to admit it. So they're definitely looking for some more pizzazz, some more, little feel, not to the level of 2001. Don't want that much, but definitely something for 2020. And yeah, Pat McAfee is definitely someone to think of. And we're going to run down this list of some other people that I think are going to fit that mold just as well.
Yeah, we've compiled a list of names here that play-by-play. I looked at a bunch of play-by-play guys. You looked at some color people, the ex-players and whatnot, and we'll go through some names that we could pick apart from ESPN and Fox's teams. Obviously, they could also go outside, people who aren't currently with the networks, and we'll dive into those and also bring up what we might, what kind of segments they might be able to do or how they might be able to frame the broadcast that might be a little bit different from normal football. Side note real quick, Pat McAfee, his first game calling a football game for the for ESPN in college football, UCLA and Cincinnati, Bryant. So you'll be experiencing Pat McAfee for your first college football viewing of the season.
I will report back accordingly, sir.
I mean, I'll probably be watching that one too. That's must-watch TV. He's a hilarious guy. And And he's from Pittsburgh. Not to throw that out there either. But
2 topics on this with guys from Pittsburgh. Alan, I will say this too: the AAF, when they did this, they brought in some non recognizable names in terms of the play-by-play. It seemed like it was almost the B or C teams, maybe in training for professionals. I don't know if the XFL is really wanting that from ESPN and Fox for this. For broadcasting their games.
Yeah, the play-by-play person, just as long as they can clearly call the action and explain the rules to people, I think that's all that matters. So the personality there doesn't matter. You don't need to get the Monday Night Football host, Joe Tessitore, the play-by-play guy who also is great at boxing. You don't need ESPN's A play-by-play guy. Maybe you could get the guy who quit Monday Night Football and Sean McDonough, after having to work with John Gruden. If they tell him you get to call football, but not with John Gruden, maybe he'll do it. I'd like to see, maybe even a classic guy. What about Gary Thorne, who's like mainly a hockey and baseball guy, but he
does Baltimore. I think he's working for Baltimore now. Right?
Yeah, he does Baltimore Orioles games, I think, or at least they used to.
Yeah, I heard it the other day.
He was amazing voice. It's just a distinct voice for ESPN. We're talking.
He was a top ESPN hockey guy too when ESPN had hockey.
Yeah. And then you got ESPN's former Sunday Night Football guy, Mike Patrick, who used to call the games with Joe Theismann. I think he still does like late night college football games or the primetime college football games on like SEC Network or maybe ESPN2. ESPN has a litany of quality play-by-play personalities. Pam Ward, Beth Mowens, Reese Davis, you name it. Handsome Adam Amin, I'm a fan of. Anybody who's currently doing college football in February hopefully will be available for ESPN. On the Fox side for play-by-play, Fox's play-by-plays are kind of more personality-driven. At least Joe Buck obviously is the number one. But Tim Brando, who does college football, is also kind of a guy who will do like editorials and speak out, he'll give opinion, and outside of like ESPN play-by-play guys, they don't normally do that. So Fox gives you that kind of attitude with their play-by-play people. And obviously the guy who sticks out is Gus Johnson, who we all could just only dream about being the number one guy for XFL football come 2020. I think that's what we're all hoping for. I don't know if we're going to get that. Gus Johnson does do college basketball as well. And we don't know what kind of pay these guys are going to get, or what's going on behind the scenes with the broadcasts and who gets assigned what in terms of pay and whatnot.
You're right. But you know what? And this is going to turn into Brian bashing the AAF again episode probably. But unlike the AAF, the networks benefit from putting on the best show possible, right? The CBS deal that the AAF had nothing to do with anything about, hey, let's look good. You're just paying me to be on my network. ESPN, Fox, it's going to behoove them to actually make this as best as possible, and announcing is part of that process. So I would assume they're going to bring in, maybe not the top, but they're going to bring in some people that are really good.
I'm hoping, and then you got a list of personalities who I think we could definitely pick apart even more so, because that's where the character of the broadcast comes from, and that's where you can have these shows, is what they are. They're shows on TV, stick out and set themselves apart when it comes to the people telling the story of these football games that we're going to be watching come February.
Yeah, Alan, I put some color people together because that is where that's what their name is. They're the color commentators, right? They bring in they sprinkle their fairy dust on these broadcasts to make them a little bit more exciting. I'll go through a list here of stuff, and if you want to talk about anyone more specifically, the one that stood out to me, especially during the NFL draft, and I feel like he would do great things for the XFL, was Booger McFarland. I thought for ESPN, if he could sit in a booth with someone, I'd love to hear him talk about a game as the game progressed.
Yeah, Booger is the Monday Night Football lead guy though now. I just don't see that do you think they're going to put aces from NFL broadcasts onto the XFL? I don't see. I mean, because would Troy Aikman do an XFL game? I highly doubt it. Unfortunately,
but I don't. These are. I'm looking at the schedule. I have this lovely little postcard that I got from my friend Heather Carrot at the meet and greets at Buffalo Wild Wings, and it has the entire schedule on here. You're talking about 2 games on the networks of Disney, ESPN, and ABC in week 1, week 2. I mean, every week I'm looking here, just there are at least 2 games you're going to have. You could spare him for 1 or 2 or 3 games in there somewhere. I mean, you're talking about 20 games that are going to for sure be on either ABC or ESPN. Yeah,
well, it's not like these guys are, in a bullpen. They're just going to get thrown out there. Their contracts and, they already have it set what they're going to do. Who knows what goes on with the announcer and color commentator and play-by-play guy contracts, but I'm hoping for bigger personalized. What I don't want to see is the studio, talking heads, the yellers, I call them, from these channels incorporated into these shows. Keep them away. Too many of them are toxic. And whether you're a fan of them or not, but I just don't want... Does Skip Bayless need to be a part of an XFL Fox broadcast or Colin Cowherd? These guys are too polarizing, I think, to have as part of the show.
Stephen A. Smith? You don't want him in a booth?
Stephen A? No, thank you. No.
What about someone with some looks? Someone who wowed women all over this country many years ago, and Jesse Palmer.
Oh, yeah, he's fine because he does color commentary for college football. That's a part of his repertoire. The other guys are just guys who yell. I don't want them on the broadcast. Pre-game show, sure, I guess, but during the game, let's keep it to ex-players, quality play-by-play people, and let's put together a good, crisp broadcast. What do you say? And throw in some innovations there with some camera work, and audio is really what we want to hear. The CFL gives you the open mic games. They run disclaimers before every game. It's insane, but it's awesome. You feel like that's how you feel, like you're on the field. More so than I think the Spider Cam. Hearing the players scream out stuff during play is incredibly entertaining and insightful, I think. I'm hoping they consider it.
I'm sorry, I was just thinking about the new T-shirt that we're going to put out there that says "Audio is what we really want to hear." That's going to be a great T-shirt.
I mean, yeah, I'm an audiophile for sure, but come on, who doesn't want to? The most famous thing Peyton Manning ever did was yell "Omaha," and everybody yells it. You want to hear what they're screaming on the field. Imagine if we've been doing that for years. A lot of players could have made a lot of money and gotten a lot of free steaks or whatever, what they were yelling on the sideline or on the field there. I mean, that's...
All right, we see, but Alan, that's just, I don't know about the disclaimer. We've already talked about it. It's not necessary to hear players cursing and saying, bad things to one another.
I don't want to hear the cursing. I just want to hear the play. I want to hear, hey, he's going left. He's going Mike, love, whatever. Ric Flair, 412, happy, jolly, whatever.
Wouldn't you rather hear that stuff on the special, XFL live or whatever it is?
Oh, you mean inside the XFL on Showtime or HBO? Yeah, that would be great.
Well, even just on ESPN. All right, Alan, you said a couple foreign players. I'll bring these two up real quick. Joey Galloway, Brian Greasy. I think they've done well in their. I think Brian Greasy actually is a color guy for college, if I'm not mistaken. And Joey Galloway is a studio guy. So do you put him in the booth, give him a shot, see if he can get his feet wet with the XFL?
Do you think the XFL, in all honesty, is going to get... Because ESPN and Fox, more so ESPN, they have deep benches because they air games on ESPN Plus, and they've got guys running like Sunbelt. They've got guys running Sunbelt, conference games and covering the AAC and instead of the ACC. I mean, the ACC network's going to have their own dedicated team now. You have the SEC network has their dedicated team, and that spreads it a little thin for the XFL. Do you think maybe they're going to get the guys and girls who haven't gotten a shot yet at those big network jobs yet? Maybe the people who have been lower on the bench? Is that what you anticipate? Because that's kind of what I feel, sprinkled in with a few familiar names.
Possibly. I think people put a lot of pressure, I don't want to say pressure, but a lot of weight on the broadcast teams to be recognizable. But really, do you even recognize these names half the time if you're not there at the very beginning to when they introduce themselves? I mean, that's the real key, is when they're talking. Do you know who's the person talking? Unless you're a true diehard football fan, you really don't know. So if they feel like they can get someone in there that could do a good job and give them a little bit more exposure, maybe get them into a pro game rather than a college game, if that makes any sense when it comes to broadcasting, or any difference, I should say, then yeah, I don't see a problem with that. Again, this is almost like the team names discussion. Yeah, I want someone good, I want someone great, but and don't just throw anybody out there. But again, I think nobody that either one of these networks is going to choose is really going to mess this up that badly.
Yeah, well, there's no way to mess it up because I don't think people are as concerned about it as most other things. But the broadcast personnel is below the actual broadcast, and the technology and the camera work and the access. That is the main factor in the broadcast and how everything is framed. And I'm hoping for ideally a little bit of spider cam, a lot of audio, and way more access to the sidelines than we normally get. I want to see, instead of sideline reporters, I want to see sideline microphones in the faces of people screaming at each other. And I want to see more candid sideline interviews, less canned sideline interviews as well, if we're going to have them. Because there's no point in running down a coach who's going to say, blah-de-blah-de-blah, work harder in the second half. I mean, let's make everything have substance and mean something during the broadcast instead of just filler. I want all killer, no filler, if possible.
All right. Well, and there's no way. Okay, the other name, I have two more names on here. One I'll just bring up briefly because I don't think either one of us thinks it's going to. Kirk Herbstreit's not going to be doing any of this stuff, right?
No, I don't think so. He's
on a pre-show.
Nah, maybe as a special guest.
Travels like no other.
Yeah, I mean,
he does the morning shows in the morning, in the morning from wherever, and then college game day, and then he's out and doing a game, 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, from August till January, that guy's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. The guy who has a very lax schedule that I would love to see is Lee Corso involved somehow, but then again, he's Lee Corso, and he's playing golf and chilling in Florida probably in those months. Especially, maybe he would call an XFL game in LA, maybe at that time, but I don't even know if he wants to go out there. So there's a lot of good personnel that I think there's more than enough for them to choose from. And if it is the up-and-comers or the lesser-knowns, that's fine because there's a lot they can do with the broadcast that just makes it exciting. Do you want to see anybody outside the box? Like, well, the XFL original had wrestlers or wrestling commentators. Do you want to see anybody like that, or I don't know, like a comedian or anybody who isn't a former football player or sports person?
The one that I really want to see, and I hope they give him the chance, is I really want to see a Taylor Twillman from the soccer guy on ESPN, the outlandish soccer guy.
He just says the thing that's just going to upset the most people every single time. That guy.
I think he would do well. I think he would bring the energy. I think he's probably another Pat McAfee.
Listen, they did not come out in the second half and play with fire. They all hate their children for what they did. That's like what he would say.
No, he's not going to say that.
I don't want that. I don't need that on my broadcast. Like I said, I don't want the yellers. I just want people who are there to have a good time and give us good, crisp broadcasts. I think Pat McAfee's there. Someone who's funny, a little silly, but loves football. I just want people who just love football and aren't there just to be broadcasters.
Oliver Luke. Just have him in the booth then.
Oh my goodness. Imagine if Oliver Luck the commissioner's way too busy to call a game every week. The game of the
he's in the booth at one point, I think. That'd be kind of a good, couple series for him to sit in on and get interviewed at the same time. I'm looking forward to that now that I think about it too. All right, Alan, that's all I had for ESPN. Anybody else that you can think of for ESPN real quick?
No, for ESPN, I mean, they've got so many people, and who'd you say, Carrot Top?
You said comedians. I'm just bringing out some names.
No, he's too visual. And for Fox, I mean, it's Gus Johnson or bust for me. For play-by-play guys, yeah, they don't have. I mean, everybody else they have is pretty good, but just he stands out. and they have so many different football players and ex-football players that they could reach out to. A lot of times they get current guys. I wouldn't be surprised if a current NFL player is also an analyst for one of these networks. That would be really cool. I wonder if that would be allowed.
Who was it that that asked to be paid in quarters by the AAF to do wasn't it Marshawn Lynch?
Yes. Yeah, Marshawn Lynch. No, he did it. He requested the quarters just to show up to their quarterback draft. That wasn't to do commentary, yes. Or it was for like an interview or something during. Yeah.
Studio analyst, something like that. Was hilarious. All right, you mentioned ex-players. I'll throw these two at you real quick. Well, I guess all three of them that I have on my list. But Matt Leinart, Brady Quinn, I think are two obvious choices that I'd like to see in the booth. They're not that bad, and they're pretty actually entertaining to listen to, and it'd be recognizable names for the XFL.
Man, I wonder if Fox, if you get one of the Fox NFL Sunday morning show guys involved at all. Definitely not Strahan. He's the busiest man in America, but Jimmy Johnson, Terry Bradshaw, maybe Howie Long. What about Howie's son, Chris Long? What's he going to be doing? He just retired. Tony Gonzalez, who's getting minted as a Hall of Famer this weekend, or was, as of everybody listening to the show. Man, I don't know. Who's even on the Fox roster?
That's a good point. We'd have to go through that. Maybe we'll tweet out these links that we kind of use. But Alan, some guy that I see on the sidelines at every Pac-12 game that Fox broadcasts, I'd like to see him in a booth for a couple of games.
And he sometimes does color too. I know who you're about to say.
Petros Papadakis. You ask him, he probably doesn't know. But either way, he's just got that energy. He's not a yeller. He's a very professional man, a Southern California native. Knows so much about every level of football in Southern California. It's actually quite scary. He's the Rain Man of high school football here. But I'd love to see him in the booth.
I mean, I'm a big Petros fan. Someone who has worked in LA radio, someone who listened to Los Angeles radio for a long time, someone who's watched Los Angeles local news. He's also part of it. Petros Papadakis is just one of the finest human beings in sports media. He is exactly the kind of guy. I guess he would be Fox's answer to Pat McAfee on ESPN. I absolutely think they are cut from the same cloth, and those are the kind of fun, energetic guys you need involved with the XFL. You got to have the straight man or woman on the play-by-play. You got to have someone who's entertaining and insightful at the same time. Hard to come by, but for the A team, you're a color guy and a color guy on ESPN and a color guy on Fox. I think we've pinpointed it. It's got to be, for me, it's got to be Pat McAfee on ESPN, Petros Papadakis on Fox Sports.
Alan, who pushes harder for their broadcasters to be better, ESPN or Fox?
I think there are probably more rules on ESPN announcers than there are on Fox announcers. So I think there's more creativity allowed on Fox than there might be on ESPN. So that I guess to answer your question, then I guess it's ESPN holds them to a certain standard more so than Fox. But the thing is, Fox allows you to kind of be you more than ESPN does. There's a lot more editorial in a Fox broadcast from announcers than there is on ESPN, I think.
Yeah, that's a good fair point. I think it's going to make sense for Fox to put out the best possible, the best quality broadcast that it can. It is on its parent, the Fox Sports 1 and Fox is their bread and butter, and there's not a lot of sports on FS1, at least not live. I mean, really, there isn't. So I think Fox is going to try to make a big splash with this and make it as crisp, a good crisp broadcast.
Yeah,
by far, I'm expecting
good crisp football.
And lastly, I want to ask you about graphics on the screen. Do you want to see anything different from the traditional what Fox has given us and ESPN? Do you want to see any explosions? Do you want to see a trail on the ball or something in terms of visuals and the... What was that?
I said, this isn't hockey. I can see the ball when it's being passed across the field. Visuals. I guess we haven't really talked about this. We might have to do a special bonus on Patreon about what we want the broadcast to actually look like.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what I don't want. I'm not a fan of nowadays they're adding to the traditional, which I can't believe it's traditional now because we're, I guess, old enough now before there was even a first down yellow line on the field. Yeah. But now they're going off of that. Now you'll see the entire field will be, red.
Like shadow.
Yeah, they'll shadow it so you could see how the down and distance, and they'll show you the whole the trail of like how far the play went afterwards, and they're just throwing CGI all over the field. I want to kind of strip most of that away and just get to the basics. I want to know where the first down marker is. I don't mind knowing how far a kick is going to be, or where the point they need to get for a kicker to be in range or whatever. I like that kind of thing, but I don't need all the craziness that we've been seeing lately. Like out watching the Hall of Fame game this week. I mean, NBC was going berserk with graphics, and it was a little overwhelming. It's too busy. And then you also have to watch, they put Twitter scrolls on the bottom. And then interviews in the left corner.
Too much to look at. I just say too much to look at, but I'm thinking this idea, and just bear with me for a second as I explain it. Picture in picture, the offensive coach on the left, the defensive coach on the right, and the main game in the middle, and you broadcast them both all live.
I like that. Screens. Maybe not for every single series, but for like a crucial. What if like you're in a crucial series or something, or
like a third and 10 or something like
or
that.
Just for a big play, I like that, especially when you think about how the XFL is going to have all 11 communication most likely. The quarterback might not be screaming out orders then as much in this league, and it's going to be maybe the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator or someone. Maybe get the camera on that person to just visualize, give the fans a visualization of the person barking in the players' ears as they all collectively run to the line of scrimmage with only 25 seconds to get a playoff. I think that would be fascinating. Lots you could do. I think you need to experiment. You need to try. Obviously, there are going to be some stinkers, but you don't want to try too much. You don't want to overwhelm us. You don't want to go berserk like the AAF did. My goodness, Brian. If that happens, that would be a disaster, because that was just so irritating and distracting. I can't even tell you enough how much I hated that thing.
The Sky Cam, I don't even know how anybody actually I don't know. I don't understand.
Well, most people understood why they were doing that too, right? Why they overutilized the spider cam.
Well, they're trying to innovate, right? They're trying to be the X.
They were trying to hide something too. Empty seats. They were. Let's face it. Who cares? I know some people think it's not a good look if some of the seats are empty, but you're going to keep being empty. At the expense of the fan at home watching. Don't try to hide the lack of fan at the stadium. We don't care. We just want to watch the game and be able to see the play. Please. And that's I guess all we can ask. And everything else would be a bonus. But that was fun. And man, because I've been working in this media game over a decade, I'll tell you. So I have a lot of ideas for how the games could be broadcast, Brian. But you're right. That sounds like an entire Patreon episode, maybe, where we go even deeper into it. But that was pretty thorough, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we went through some names. We went through some team names. We went through a player invited to the showcase. It was a lot of discussion today, Alan. It's going to be more discussion that we need to have. There's so much that we need to talk about that we're going to have to do more and more Patreon bonus episodes. I just don't know. This show probably ran over 2 hours, I feel like.
It feels like it, but I think we're clocking in a good crisp amount of time in the under 90 minutes, which we're aiming for, and also what a week for, just the show this week. We were churning out content for everybody, you football freaks. If you want it, we got it for you. Talking about every single possible topic and idea, and just we're having fun when it comes to the XFL. We're examining the league at all angles each and every single day now, and it's only going to get bigger because we do have the Patreon and we put a lot of bonus stuff there, but our normal feed is going to start getting even more robust with free content. So stay tuned for that for sure, and tell your friends to subscribe. And if, I see it on social media, Bryant. As we get closer to 2020, you do have a lot more people now who haven't been following it because we have been far away. We're still 28 weeks away. But now that we're getting closer, you do see people out there on social media asking their friends, asking followers, saying, hey, anybody know where I can hear some XFL content, a podcast or something? And just if you see or hear anybody asking that question, you send them our way because we got them covered. That's what we're here for.
We're here to guide all you into the spring of 2020, and thank you all for spreading the word as much as possible. Hopefully you're having as much fun listening as we are putting together all these shows. Alan, as many shows and as many things that we're talking about on the free stream, on Patreon, on YouTube, on Twitter. We still have plenty to talk about, man. We're not running out of topics here. So stay tuned. As always a good stay tuned. Stay tuned for when those team names come out. You'll probably see some bonus coverage on our side. And just stick with us. It's going to be a long road, but 28 weeks goes by just like that.
And we'll be back next week. And if team names or not, like you said, so many things to talk about, so many angles to look at this league from, and more interviews to come, more XFL for you. We've got it. You just subscribe and tell your friends, and just know that we appreciate you. And, of course, hit us up at XFL Show to keep the conversation going throughout the week on all social media. And, the phone number, we'll give that out as we end here, 724-565-4XFL. Leave us a voicemail any time of the day. All right, let's get out of here, and I'm going to go map out exactly what kind of broadcasters I want to see in these games, and I'm going to pitch it to ESPN and Fox, and maybe I'll get us on the 50-yard line before every single game, Brian. I think we'd do a hell of a pregame show.
50-yard line pregame shows are on the 25. We all know this, Alan.
All right. For Bryant, I'm Alan. Thanks for listening. This is the XFL Show. Remember, they're listening.
Thanks for watching and listening, XFL fans. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below, or even better, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things XFL. Check out some of our other videos and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at XFL Show. This is the XFL Show, is a production of Pretty Easy Podcasts.